Now, Republicans like to make a big deal about following the law. Okay. As and During the Barack Obama presidency, they often thought that Obama was going to postpone elections or cancel elections so that he could serve a third term, fourth term, fifth term, whatever, so that he could be the permanent ruler of the United States. Now, that is, of course, ridiculous because, well, number one, he's no longer president. So that should be the first indication that that was nonsense. But of course, Republicans, a lot of them believe that President Obama was not going to follow the rule of law. And that's interesting because in the next story, or this story, I should say, there is a poll which indicates that a lot of Republicans are fine with Donald Trump not following the rule of law. Very interesting. In fact, according to a poll conducted by two academic authors and published by the Washington Post, a total of 52% of Republicans said that they would back a postponement of the next election if Donald Trump had called for it. So if Trump suddenly comes out tomorrow and says, I'm going to postpone the election because I feel like there's going to be some problems. There's some major problems. We're not winning with these elections. So I would just like to postpone it. Now, they asked if Trump and congressional Republicans proposed postponing the election to ensure that only eligible citizens can vote. Support from Republicans rises to about 56%. Now, that's interesting. So let's explain or go into try to figure out why. Well, pollsters found that 47% of Republicans think that Donald Trump had won the popular vote. Very interesting. So now we're into voter fraud. Now, that's clearly not true. The numbers bear that out. Trump actually lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. That is a stone-cold fact. Anybody arguing against that is not living in reality. Not living in reality whatsoever. So, and of course, I'm not going to win those people over. Now, it doesn't even matter anyway how much he won or lost a popular vote, because he won the election. That is also another stone-cold fact. He won the Electoral College, meaning he won the election. Now, everybody knows that because he's currently the president right now. But again, Trump, he's clinging to this ridiculous notion that, no, I won. I'm not a loser. You're the losers. You're the losers. It's all fraud. It's all fraud. It's all fake news. Now, here's the thing, right? Again, you won. Everybody knows that. That's not a question. Because it turns out you don't have to win the popular vote in order to win in this country. Now, should we change that? If you ask me personally, absolutely. Of course we should change that. Not just because of Donald Trump, but look, the Electoral College, it simply has no place in our modern electoral system. It is undemocratic, just like superdelegates are also incredibly undemocratic. So, now, why do so many Republicans think that he won when he clearly lost the popular vote? Well, say it with me. Voter fraud. Of course it's voter fraud. In fact, a majority of Republicans, 68%, think millions of illegal, undocumented immigrants voted in this presidential election. Well, that's kind of funny. Now, they're out there saying, oh my God, Trump would have actually won that popular vote. I mean, he actually did because he had those millions of illegal immigrants that Hillary bust in to go and vote. But wait a minute, if that was true, then why did Hillary Clinton, if she had millions of undocumented immigrants voting for her, why did she lose the election? If she had the power to bust in illegal immigrants by the millions to go in and vote for her, well, why didn't she send them to Michigan? Why didn't she send them to Pennsylvania? Why didn't she send them to Wisconsin? Why didn't she send them to any of the battleground states? She was already going to win California. So what would be the point? It literally makes no sense. When you look at that theory, it completely falls apart because it's bullshit. We know Clinton ran a bad campaign, but nobody could be that stupid. I'm just saying. And the truth is, look, there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud to begin with. Still, 73% of Republicans think, no, this happens very often. Super often. Okay, well, where's the proof? You got your proof yet? No, because there is no proof. In fact, they're pulling numbers and statistics out of their ass. They have no actual numbers. You know who has numbers? I do. Of course I do. The Washington Post just found just 4 instances of voter fraud in the 2016 election. 3 of those were actually Trump voters. Ironic, right? Now remember, Terry Lynn wrote, she might actually be the most famous case of voter fraud. She actually tried to vote twice in Des Moines. Now why did she do that? Well, she said, look, the reason that I voted twice, and she got caught, is that I believe the polls are rigged. The polls are rigged. So I had to vote I had to vote twice to make sure that my choice was accepted. Now, you also had somebody named Audrey Cook. Now, Audrey Cook was an election judge in Illinois. She was also a Republican. She and her husband had applied for absentee ballots because he was ill. Now, he died before completing his, so she decided, well, he was going to vote for them anyway. Going to vote for Trump, so I'm just going to fill it out. Well, you can't actually do that because he's dead. And again, that's sad, but you can't do that. Even though it was his intention to vote for Trump anyway, she probably thought, well, look, he's going to vote for my way anyway, so I'm just going to fill it out. No, you can't do that. That is voter fraud. Now, there's another case, the case of Philip Cook. Philip Cook was arrested on Election Day after, again, voting twice. Now, he claimed, no, guys. No, I didn't perpetrate voter fraud. What I was doing is that, well, since I work for the Trump campaign, I was just testing the security of the electoral system. It turns out your security is actually really good. Idiot. It turned out later, of course, that he was not an employee of the campaign. He was making it up because he was doing voter fraud. So there's your documented cases so far of voter fraud. Let me give you some more numbers here. Now, there's a study from Dartmouth University that found, guess what? No evidence of widespread voter fraud. In these particular cases, you could pick out a handful. And look, you could pick out a handful, and not just in the last year, but in the last 10 years. Just a handful of people, 31 at most, perpetrating in-person voter fraud. This is not the widespread voter fraud that the Republicans and that Donald Trump claims happens. Okay, let me give you more details. 2 studies done at Arizona State University, one in 2012 and another in 2016, found similarly negligible rates of impersonation fraud. The project found 10 cases of voter impersonation fraud nationwide from 2000 to 2012. The follow-up study, which looked for fraud specifically in states where politicians have argued that fraud is a pernicious problem, found 0 successful prosecutions for impersonation fraud in 5 states from 2012 to 2016. There's more. The Brennan Center's seminal report on this issue, titled The Truth About Voter Fraud, found that most reported incidents of voter fraud are actually traceable to other sources, such as clerical errors or bad data matching practices. The report reviewed elections that have been meticulously studied for voter fraud and found incidence rates between 0.0003% and 0.0025%. So no widespread voter fraud. That is incredibly, infinitesimally small. There's more. Study published by Columbia University political scientists tracked incidence rates for voter fraud over 2 years and found that the rare fraud that was reported generally could be traced by false claims by the loser of a close race, mischief, and administrative or voter error. And again, study after study, no voter fraud, no widespread voter fraud. And now here's another thing to think about, right? And this comes across as more of their messaging. Now you've got Ann Coulter and all these right-wing pundits. Well, they call, specifically in this election where Donald Trump claims, well, all these immigrants came across the border, they got bussed in to vote. But you have these same people alleging that, also saying, but these Mexicans, they're lazy, they're shiftless. These immigrants, they come in, you know, and they just want to suck off the welfare. But wait a minute, don't they also want to steal our job? If they're lazy and shiftless, they also cannot be stealing your jobs and voting in large numbers. That's ridiculous. Those two things are at odds. And look, let me look at the voting data of how many of the American people that actually voted in 2016. Turns out only 55% of voting age adults cast a ballot this year. Now, using their logic, right? Again, using their logic, does that mean that the 45% who didn't vote were lazy too? Because look, if lazy Mexicans were out there voting, well, what's your excuse? What's everyone else's excuse? I'm not entirely sure that they put a lot of thought into this one. Like, unfortunately, a lot of conservative narratives. But look, they don't need thought. They don't need facts. They feel it in their gut. Okay, they feel that we know. We know those immigrants were coming in and voting. We know they were doing voter fraud. I feel it. I feel it. And not only that, but they are authoritarians, right? You don't need facts, but you need a figurehead. And if a figurehead, like Donald Trump, said something, well, you have faith in that figurehead, so whatever he says has to be the truth. Because, again, you are an authoritarian. That's why a majority, 52% of Republicans, are like, yes, let's subvert democracy and postpone an election based on nothing. Now, how long would they postpone it? They didn't say cancel. They said postpone. Well, I don't know. I don't know how long they would plan to actually do such a thing. And then what measures would they want to put in place before they bring it back? If they ever bring it back. It's scary. The implications here. I mean, imagine if Barack Obama had said this, or any other Democrat suggested that they postpone elections based on non-existent facts. They would scream bloody murder. I mean, look, President Obama didn't even have to do anything, didn't even have to say anything. And you had right-wing conspiracy theorists coming up with, oh my God, he's going to cancel the elections. He's going to be the ruler forever. He's taking over. He's invading Texas. He's going to declare martial law and put everybody in the FEMA camps. That's what the extreme right had said about President Obama. And I'm not saying the same thing. I'm just saying that there's a lot of Republicans that are perfectly okay with Trump and other Republicans, Republican politicians, saying, hey, you know what, let's ignore democracy for a while. And look, to be fair, Trump hasn't suggested this, although he has suggested that we've got a massive voter fraud problem, which we actually do not. Now, if you want to talk about some of the real problems facing our voting system, we could have actually a really good conversation about that. And for me, it's not voter fraud. It's not even vote hacking, okay? It's voter suppression. Thanks to things like Chris Kobach and his interstate cross-check system. Now, that we do have proof that it has disenfranchised people. And unfortunately, there haven't been a ton of studies on that. But there has been somebody who's been looking onto it really with a lot of diligence. And that is, of course, Greg Palast. Now, Palast found that millions of people were prevented from voting due to excessive voter purges. Now, on the subject of purges, are all purges created equal? No, not necessarily. You do need to purge voter rolls every once in a while. There are people that do die, and then there are people that move. And you got to make sure that you purge the voter rolls so when they go and register to vote somewhere else, that they aren't accidentally, considered voting twice. So, but that's what cross-check looked at. Oh, are you a person that has a similar name? Or have you moved? Oh, we need to strike you from the voter rolls just to make sure you can't vote twice, even though you're not deregistered here and you're registered somewhere else, and there's only one vote coming from where you actually are. That's okay. We're going to kick you off the system anyway. So, but anyway, again, they found, Palast did, he found over 1 million people purged across several different states through the interstate cross-check system. That includes Arizona, Michigan, and North Carolina. And surprise, surprise, it turns out most of these people that were purged were people of color. Interesting. And there were other tactics, of course, voter ID. They actually blocked certain registrations, threw them out. And, of course, not counting provisional ballots. That is the actual fraud. Now, those of us who live in the real world of facts know that voter fraud is simply too rare to make an impact. It doesn't make sense. If you want to swing an election, you don't do in-person voter fraud where you could get easily caught. No, if you want to swing an election, you actually suppress people from being able to vote in the first place and then try to get more of your people out than the other side, because you prevent the other side from getting out. That's how you win an election. That's how you steal an election, through voter suppression. It is just much easier to suppress the vote than to come up with policies, of course, when it comes to being a right-winger that most people would support. And most people do not support the goals of the right wing, and that those goals are cutting taxes for the rich and corporations and deregulating industry and making sure that they can pollute. Most people don't support that. Most people do not support the corporate agenda. And so, well, look, they serve their donors. They serve them very well. And so they think, well, look, if we actually come out with policies that would help us win, well, then we're going to lose the support of the donors. We're going to lose all that money. No, that's not the direction we're going to go. We're just going to make sure that less people are out to vote. In fact, look, this isn't a new strategy. In fact, Paul Weyrich, who is the godfather of the modern conservative movement, says, hey, man, look, if there are less people voting, we get more power. That's the way we like it. We want less people to vote. They said it, man. I didn't. But look, and the reason that they want to do that is of course, as I keep saying, they don't work for the people. Okay, they work for the elite, they work for the multinational corporations, they work for the special interests, and they work for the super rich. And they found that when less people vote, the more power that they continue to get, and the more ability they have to come and pick your pocket. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.